Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here on the 440 Sports Network at Stillman and Co. on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends, again, to like and subscribe. And meanwhile, mini leg Nick Folk just drilled a 50-something yard field goal, and the Jets, who S-U-C-K, suck. The Jets are 3-9 as they beat the Falcons 27-24. Atlanta 4-8, which means that old buddy in Atlanta, Raheem Morris, is getting fired. But that's good news as far as the tank job is concerned for the Tennessee Titans trying to earn the number one pick. Still got to worry about the Raiders. You know, the Raiders are the team you have to worry about. But after watching today's performance by the Tennessee Titans, I don't think there is any need for us to worry about the number one overall pick. First, let me tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical as we get rolling here on Postgame Live. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical is the presenting sponsor of the Stillman & Company program. They've been in business since 1990. They are family-owned and operated with 100% satisfaction. If happy, you'll be here. The service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work that is performed by Hiller, they will make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians who come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value, and they believe that when they care about others, everybody wins. And I know this because I use Hiller at my home. Again, they're proud supporters, the Preds, Vanderbilt, and the Tennessee Volunteers. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, let's get going with today's whatever you want to call it. Today's performance from the Titans. I don't have big expectations for the Titans. You don't have big expectations for the Titans. Shit, going into the year, they didn't have big expectations for themselves. Remember, Big Joe Dubin acting like a dumbass got out there and said, hey, do you think your team can win the Super Bowl? And Chad Brinker sit there and giggled, and Mike Borgonzi gave a very political answer of that's always the goal, but we got a lot of work to do. The traditional just, hey, fans, be patient, but it's not going to be this year. I don't think what they thought at that time when they were sitting there, and I could be wrong, was we're the shittiest team in the league, and we might be one of the shittiest teams in the history of the NFL. And I know every team the Titans play is the 85 Bears, according to the schedule. As far as the Cam Ward excuse of the day is concerned, again, this is the hardest schedule they've ever had. How can you ever expect with that schedule for them to compete? This Jacksonville team, they ain't that good. I told my dad when they flashed the AFC South graphic up there during the game, and my dad watches football, but he doesn't keep up with it day to day like you and I do. And I said to my dad, I go, Houston's going to win that division. Jacksonville, they're fine. They ain't that good. Titans drive all the way down the field on the first drive. Cam has a decisive throw here. Not that bad. Again, looking, I think, solid on the first drive. They get a 4th and 3. And again, I'm watching the game. I'm like, go for it. Like, who cares? Go for it. Of course, Mike McCoy comes out, kicks the field goal, 3-0. From that point on, the Titans got a 3-and-out to start the game. From that point on, Trevor Lawrence throws the ball right over the middle. Jacoby Myers runs it down. He throws a touchdown to Jacoby Myers. Chim DK fumbles the kickoff. And from that, the meltdown was on. They score the touchdown. The Titans commit a penalty. They move the ball half the distance to the goal. They go for 2. They get it. Simmons commits a penalty. Now they get bad field position. So on and so forth. And so I have really a handful of thoughts about today's game. And this comes as somebody who, I'm not going to say I was passively watching the game, because I did watch the game today, but I had no interest in watching the game today. The only reason I watched this game was because I'm coming on here to talk to you about this game. If this was when I used to be on the radio in Louisville, or when I was in college, I would not have gone out of my way to pull up Sunday Ticket on my then PlayStation 3 back in the day to get a crappy, choppy version of what Sunday Ticket used to be. I'm not going through the hoops or going to a sports bar with Sunday Ticket to watch a game. Not happening. I watched the game today, and I watched the Titans get their asses kicked in all three phases. I watched these mini melees. Again, the game was so poorly officiated by Brad Rogers, who every time he refs a game, a buddy of mine is a doctor, and he grew a beard out because when he shaves, he's kind of got a baby face going on. So when he shaves, people will say, oh, can I get a grown-up doctor in here? Brad Rogers needs to shave the morning of every kickoff because he looks like when he refs a game, like he was out on Broadway till 4 o'clock in the morning, and his crew officiated like it today. So we had some mini melees going on there, and the Titans just looked like absolute dog shit, and they played like it. And, of course, Mike McCoy's just standing there on the sideline doing nothing. He's doing his job, securing the number 1 pick. Amy's up in the box. She got a blanket over herself with her buddy showing her something on the phone, which I'd like to know who that person showing Amy what was on the phone, because I need to text that woman that was sitting there next to Amy because we're going to have some talks with Amy. But here's the big thing that I want to talk about when it comes to today's game. Now, you guys probably have a decent idea of how this works when it comes to CBS broadcasting games. CBS has 6 crews, and then they've got a couple of guys who will do a couple of NFL games every year, but they're not their main guys, but they've got about 5 or 6 TV crews. Fox has 5 or 6 TV crews. NBC has 1, and then they have the Notre Dame and the Big Ten crew that they may have call a game here or there. NFL Network has Rich Eisen, Kurt Warner call games. So what happens is a guy like Spiro Ditas or Adam Archuleta, they don't watch the Titans. They call whatever game they call. And it used to be that Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta would call the Titans every week because Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta were about the 4th best crew on CBS. And the Titans, when they were semi-decent with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, but not that good, would get Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta. I always told my dad, the Titans pretty much get Tom McCarthy every week, and they've had a lot of games on Fox for some reason. So these guys don't watch a lot of the Titans games. So what happens is they do the game, they get the game notes, they talk to the PR people, they fly into town. Sometimes they do these meetings now over Zoom, but they go into the facility and they go to the walkthrough at practice and they sit down with the coach and they sit down with the GM and they sit down with the coordinators and they sit down with the quarterback. And the 3 of them come out of it with some notes and, okay, let's work it into the broadcast. And I'm listening to the CBS broadcast talk about Mike Borgonzi. And this is not an attack on Mike Borgonzi, though you may take it this way, but I'm listening to the CBS crew talk about the core of the Titans. And Adini Kinkabwale, who is the sideline reporter, he's talking about how the Titans are building their team around this young core, which, of course, is Cam Ward and Chim Dike and Gunnar Helm and Alec Iomanor, which, again, any first-year general manager would say. Jeffrey Simmons says Chim Dike beats him to the facility some days. Great. I mean, I don't, okay, whatever. I don't even know what time Simmons gets there, and I don't care. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm listening to the CBS broadcasters just absolutely ball wash the Tennessee Titans front office and the rebuild that we all know they're in and that they know they're in. So we all know they're in a rebuild. They know they're in a rebuild. We know they're bad. They know they're bad. But were they supposed to be this bad? Were they supposed to be this bad? Where they're playing, again, Jacksonville. Jacksonville is, before the year, Jacksonville was 4-13 last year. Jacksonville basically sucked just as bad as you did. You played them last year, and the games went down to the wire. So you're playing Jacksonville. And it is over basically 20 minutes into kickoff, which, again, if you're tanking for the number 1 pick, it's fine. But you want games like last week where you play Seattle and it's somewhat competitive and the quarterback somewhat looks like he's decent. This game was nothing. The Titans, and I am very, very hesitant to use the word quit, because I don't think quitting is when you're trying your best and you still get blown out. I think quitting is when you just are out there saying, who gives a shit? Well, I don't even know why I'm here. And I have not felt that way about the Titans this year. Today felt a little bit that way. Like, who gives a shit? Let's fight after the play because we're not going to win anyway. So who cares about a 15-yard penalty? Who cares about any of this shit? I mean, whatever, we'll do it. I don't. But I go back to the CBS ball washing. And I go back to this rookie class, they're going to build their team around. Did you expect this team to be this bad this year? Like, going into the season, did you expect the Titans to be 1-11? Did they expect the Titans to be 1-11? They were a 3-win football team last year. And I know Chad Brinker, when he became the czar of football operations, Chad Brinker told the fans, you're going to have to be patient. There's going to be some pain involved in this. But did Chad Brinker expect to be 1-11? Did they think it was going to be worse than they were last year? I mean, again, Will Levis, he was the problem. He's out. Cam Ward, he's the savior. The Giants offered 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, according to Kaharski, and the Titans said, we're not even going to think about it because we've got Cam Ward. Well, just so you know, Shedeur Sanders today, in a game in which the Cleveland Browns scored 8 points, Shedeur Sanders had a quarterback rating of 93.6. Cam Ward's highest rating this season in a game is 92.2. So in a game where Cleveland scored 8 points, and I didn't watch Shedeur today, I unfortunately was watching the Titans. But in a game in which Cleveland scored 8 points, Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback picked in the 5th round, had a higher quarterback rating than Cam Ward's highest quarterback rating of the season. Cam Ward's quarterback rating today was 70.2. And before he started completing garbage time passes, when Jacksonville was clearly in the prevent defense, it was in the 60s. Did you think Cam Ward was going to be that bad? Did they think Cam Ward was going to be that bad? And the answer, I've got to believe, is no. And that's what kills me as a Titan fan. That is what kills me. Watching this team play every Sunday. My dad said to me, as we were watching the first half, he turns to me and he goes, why do we watch this team every week? And what's crazy is, if the young quarterback played like he played last week for more than just one game, but if he played this way for multiple games this season, and these games were close, and Cam Ward's driving late in the 4th quarter, and the ball got tipped, and there was a controversial non-roughing the passer call on 4th down, and you can live with that, right? But at the same time, let's not get carried away here. We didn't think, look, I thought they were going to be bad. I thought they were going to win 4 games. I didn't think that they were going to be a 1-win football team. They're not going to beat Cleveland, folks. Myles Garrett by himself can win that football game. They are not beating Cleveland. They're probably not going to beat New Orleans. They're probably going to win 1 game this year. Did anybody think they were going to be significantly worse than they were last year? Again, it's hard to be significantly worse than 3 wins. Win 1 game. Be almost non-competitive in every game you play. That's where they are. So I don't want to hear the ball washing of the rookie class about, hey, this team is terrible, but Jeffrey Simmons is in it for the long haul, and this team's got this great rookie class, and Cam Ward threw for 3.8 yards per attempt. 3.8 yards. Again, the average in the NFL is 7. He threw for half that. This is Jacksonville, folks. This is not the Rams. This is not Seattle. This is not Philadelphia, who, by the way, might kind of stink. This is not one of the top teams in the NFL. It's Jacksonville. They scored 3 points. And look, I like Mike Borgonzi. I think Mike Borgonzi is a lot more self-aware, and I surely think he's more competent than Ran Carthon. But that decision to turn down the Giants trade, when the Giants ended up with a better quarterback, because Jackson Dart, we'll see him play tomorrow night, by every metric, Jackson Dart has had a better rookie year than Cam Ward. And don't give me the bullshit about the Giants having a better coaching staff. They fired their coach. The Giants having a better roster. Malik Neighbors is out for the year. That team is terrible. Or anything else. Right now, Jackson Dart's a better football player than Cam Ward. So to turn down the trade with the Giants, to go all in on Cam Ward, and to put a team on the field that is significantly worse, in my opinion, than last season's horrifically shitty team, to me is an indictment of this front office knowing what they're doing. And it worries me, because I kept saying this over the last couple of years when everybody has told me that I can't fire somebody after one season because that's not fair. In fact, it was the game after Thanksgiving 2 years ago, 2023. It was the Cyber Monday day, wherein I saved this topic until 5 o'clock. The Titans went on the road to Jacksonville. They got absolutely demolished. The same way they did today. They put up more points because Levis and them had some trick plays. They lost to Jacksonville, and Vrabel was under intense fire at the time. Now, the Titans had come out and said they weren't going to fire Vrabel. Obviously, they did. But 2 years ago, on Cyber Monday 2023, I said at 5 o'clock on that Monday, if I owned the team, at the end of the year, I'm firing everybody. At the end of the year, everybody's gone. And that includes Vrabel and Ran Carthon and everybody else. And I said, I'm going to go get an experienced football guy, a Rick Spielman, a Thomas Dimitrov, a former general manager who has had success in the NFL, and I am going to put that guy in charge. And I am going to let that guy hire his coach. And I am going to ask that guy, what do you think of Levis? If you think we should build around Will Levis, then we'll build around Will Levis. If you think we need to take a quarterback in the draft, we'll take a quarterback in the draft. If you think we need to sign a veteran quarterback, you're in charge. And everybody at the time said, you can't do that, Jared. That's not fair. You're racist. Because again, Ran Carthon had 1 year. That's not fair. That looks stupid. Joe Rex wrote, if Amy fires Ran after 1 year, that'll look really stupid. And I kept saying, but guys, if you fire Vrabel and you don't fire Carthon, you are giving Carthon a promotion he hasn't earned. Why would you do that? Now go to last year. At the end of the year, they decided to give Brian Callahan another chance. So now you've wasted Cam Ward's first year because you had the dumbest head coach in the NFL. And again, he was in your building last year. Did you not know he was the softest coach in the league? But I guess they didn't. So here we are with Borgonzi and Brinker, and they do this every year where they say, okay, our new structure is going to be the answer. And every year I say, you said that last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. So why would this be any different? Which again takes me to Brinker, Borgonzi, and the future of the Titans. Because again, I want them to be good. I am tired of Sundays like this Sunday where there is literally no reason to watch. Even for somebody like me, who is hosting a post-game show. Even somebody like me, who loves the Tennessee Titans, that we have spent something like $60,000 on tickets in the new stadium. Like somebody like me, who has to sit there and hear people say, well, Cam Ward. And in my heart, I'm like, I don't even think Cam Ward's that good. And I certainly don't think the Titans are going to build a football team and an infrastructure around Cam Ward for him to succeed. Are we sure we want to run it back with this group next year? Or are you sure, after watching this team do everything wrong this past offseason, that it is not time to what I've been begging for 2 years, which is just burn it all down and start over? Again, at each interval, since the Titans decided to move on from the Vrabel, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill era, at each interval, the Titans have had a real fair shot in order to burn it down, start over, really embrace a rebuild, and do it the right way. And each year, it's actually been more inconvenient for the franchise to do it. If they had done it after Vrabel, and they had fired Ran Carthon after one season, there would have been some people who would have said, well, that's not fair to fire the black general manager after one season. But after about a day, that would have been over. And the Titans could have hired a real general manager who could have looked at the roster and would have hired a real coach. And instead, they decided to promote Ran and draft J.C. Latham with the 7th overall pick. And I don't know if you guys are watching the game, but J.C. Latham sucks. So congratulations to Ran Carthon and Bill Callahan. But J.C. Latham sucks. So you blew that one. Tavondre Sweat was never worth the 38th pick. But again, the pride of Ran Carthon's our guy, Vrabel was the problem, brought you a wasted year. 3rd round pick for L'Jarius Sneed, contract for Calvin Ridley, Chidobe Awuzie. I can go on and on and on and on. The next year, they fire Ran. They promote Brinker, and they keep Callahan. Why? You have the number 1 pick in the draft. Again, the Titans could have started completely over in 2024. And that could have been with Levis, without Levis. I don't know what a new general manager would have thought of Levis. My guess is not a lot of people like Levis very much. Amy did. She told Mike Keith after they got rid of Vrabel that Titan fans should be excited because they've got a young quarterback that nobody else believes in, but we believe in. But we don't even really believe in him that much because we drafted a fucking guard before we drafted him. So you had the opportunity to clean house. You had the 7th overall pick. You had a bunch of money coming off the book. Tannehill's gone. Henry's gone. Bayard's gone. It's a new day. Instead, they promote Ran. The next year, you have the number 1 pick in the draft. You don't have an answer at quarterback, but there are free agent options out there. It's not a loaded quarterback class. You don't have to take a quarterback. You have the opportunity to start over. Get rid of Ran. Get rid of Ran's assistant general manager, who has now become the president of football operations for whatever reason. Get rid of Callahan. Or at least let the new guy, the new general manager, Thomas Dimitrov, and I'm talking about not with Brinker over him, but I'm talking about running the Titans. Let Thomas Dimitrov, let Rick Spielman, whomever, let them pick their coach. Maybe it's Callahan, maybe it's not. I'd be shocked if it was. And they didn't do it. So now you're committed to Cam Ward. And so the Titans are going to be interviewing coaches, and they're going to hire a coach, and they're going to have to give him a 5-year contract, and they're going to have to pay him a bunch of money under the premise of you've got to coach up Cam Ward. Even though if you watch the game today, do you really think Cam Ward is any good? If you watch the game today, again, last week it was, look at this, Jared, see. And I said, let's see how he follows it up against Jacksonville. And Cam was awful today. And for the most part this season, Cam has been awful. And the reason Cam is awful, yeah, the team stinks, the coaching stinks, but it's because Cam doesn't have an exceptional level of talent. And when you turn down the Giants and you draft a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick, you have to have an exceptional level of talent to be able to resurrect your franchise. That's why your franchise is picking first. I saw somebody on Twitter talk about how coaching matters in the NFL because Jacksonville is now 8-4 with Liam Cohen as the coach. And what is it, 10-2 for Vrabel in New England? And there's another coach who I think is doing well for sure, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, look at him. He's doing well. They're 9-3. And look at Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. He's in year 3 and they still can't win. But you know what? And I have no idea if Jonathan Gannon's a good coach or not. The way they melted down against the Titans is still an embarrassment. But Mike Vrabel's not coaching Kyler Murray. Mike Vrabel's coaching Drake May. Drake May is a lot more talented and is a much better quarterback than Kyler Murray ever was or is going to be. Trevor Lawrence is better than Kyler Murray. Caleb Williams is better than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a gimmick quarterback who is too short to play the position, who has one elite trait, his athleticism, and he doesn't work very hard. He was the number 1 pick in the draft because there was nobody better to take. Just like Cam Ward. That's why they picked him. And they've been stuck in Kyler purgatory for 7 years. They have now just realized, you know what? Jacoby Brissett's actually better than Kyler, and you can get Jacoby Brissett every year. That's what Cam is. And that's what I kept saying during the draft process. I said, if this guy were an elite talent, and again, I'm talking about the talent level of Caleb Williams, or the talent level of Trevor Lawrence, or the talent level of Jaden Daniels, or the talent level of CJ Stroud. If they believed that, then fine, take them. But nobody except for the Titans believed that. And so I'm just saying today, when it comes to where the Titans are right now, after that horseshit performance we watched, I have to ask the question I've asked for each of the last 2 years, which is, has this operation proven any competence at all? Or are they actually worse than the incredibly low expectations? And I feel like they're worse than we thought they were going to be. We knew they were going to be bad. They knew they were going to be bad. But did you think they were going to be this bad? Cam Ward, rookie quarterback. We know rookie quarterbacks struggle. But did you know he was going to be this bad? Jackson Dart has had his struggles too. Jackson Dart is better in every metric than Cam Ward. Shedeur Sanders, again, had a higher quarterback rating today than Cam has had in any game this season. And these are the people that went all in for Cam. Are you sure they should be running your operation further? Thomas Dimitrov works in the Saints front office now as like a senior advisor to the general manager, and I don't know what he does or what he doesn't do. I'd like to consider Thomas a friend. Thomas was the CEO of Sumer Sports. They have a draft show the last couple of years on SiriusXM NFL Radio, and on the draft show this past year, Thomas Dimitrov, who interviewed for the Titans general manager job, was talking about Cam Ward, and he was like, look, you guys know me. I like to trade up. If you remember in Atlanta, he traded up a massive haul for Julio Jones. He goes, you remember me. I like to trade up. But if I'm them, I'm trading back. I'm trying to get somewhere around 8 to 10 because they need picks. They got to load up, and Cam's got talent, but they need the picks. If that guy was running your operation this season, you would have the Giants trade. You wouldn't be all in on Cam Ward. You wouldn't have to hire a coach specifically to coach Cam Ward. So, again, I'm not saying they're going to do it. The Titans, each of the last 4 years, have played musical blame where it's one guy's fault every year. The first year, it was John Robinson's fault, who, again, won 61% of his games and never had a losing season and went to the playoffs. What was it? 4 out of 6 times, went to the playoffs, and he won 2 division titles, and he was about to win his 3rd, and they had been to an AFC title game, and he had taken over the worst team in the NFL. Robinson got to blame the first year. Vrabel got to blame the second year. Again, this is a group of people that thought that Rand Carthon was the smarter person than Mike Vrabel. Rand Carthon's doing videos on CBS saying, man, I really wanted to trade back in the first round and then trade back up to draft Jahmyr Gibbs. Didn't have a left tackle, didn't have a right tackle. Treylon Burks was the only wide receiver they had, and he's talking about getting a second running back to go with Derrick Henry because he's a buffoon. And they picked him over Vrabel. Then they realized how stupid he was. They fired him, but not the moron coach he hired, and they promoted his assistant general manager that said shit like, we're going to use AI to prevent injuries. And so what's the easy thing to do this year? They've already done it. They fired Callahan. Blame Callahan. Not blame us, who did nothing in free agency this year except sign Dan Moore to play left tackle and move J.C. Latham to right tackle. Blame us that went all in on a quarterback who, again, Rick Spielman, a good general manager, compared on his podcast at the time to Tyrod Taylor. We turned down 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks for a guy that a former general manager in the NFL who built a competitive team said reminded him of Tyrod Taylor. So, again, I mean, do you want to run it back with all these guys? Have they earned the right to run it back? Or can you go get somebody who's actually built a good team? And for all you people out there, and I am not backing John Robinson with what I'm about to say, but I'm just being real. You guys hate John Robinson. I know you do. You hated the fact that Isaiah Wilson was a bust, and that's on Robinson. You hated the fact that Caleb Farley was always injured. That is absolutely on Robinson, and he should have never picked him. The Julio Jones trade didn't work. The A.J. Brown trade didn't work. Got it. Do you ever think you'd be as bad as you have been for the last 3 years if John Robinson was your general manager? Do you think this team would be 1-11 if John Robinson had been hired? Forget about Brinker. Forget about Borgonzi. If John Robinson had been hired the day they fired Rand Carthon and given full control of the operation. And I've said, look, I mean, I think this starts, and I hate to say this because, look, I like Burke Nihill, but I think this starts with him. He is the CEO of the team, and even though he has done his best to make it look publicly like he's just about the business and he's just about the new stadium, and so ask him about the concrete, but don't ask him about the starting guard. But there is no doubt in my mind that Burke Nihill's hand is in all of this. They don't know what they're doing. So we're just going to blame one guy, Brian Callahan, and we're going to just move forward with the guys that took last year's terrible team and made it worse. Seriously. And going back to the Brinker, Borgonzi, everything else, it really hit me yesterday when I was watching Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Because after the game was over, and you know how they sit there and they have the head coach does the interview with the TV network after the game is over, and Clark Lee is standing there and he's talking to Cole Kublik on the SEC network. And I see on TV Robbie Bourne. Robbie Bourne was the PR director of the Titans, the guy that when they fired him this offseason, you guys said you didn't care. And I see Robbie Bourne standing there behind Clark Lee with a Vanderbilt jacket on. I don't know what Robbie Bourne's doing for the Vanderbilt Commodores. I mean, he's not their SID, but I guess he's working there because, again, he had a Vanderbilt jacket on. He was in the locker room before the game. He was standing behind Clark Lee. And I'm seeing Robbie Bourne on the TV. And I don't think a PR guy is why you're good or why you're bad. But I'm thinking, man, what a get-out-of-jail-free card for that guy. Meanwhile, the Titans are sending out releases honoring their legend of the game, Drew Bennett. And in the release the Titans sent out, Terry McCormick put this up on Twitter. They said Drew Bennett signed with the Titans after a couple of seasons with the St. Louis Rams. Not true. Everybody knows Drew Bennett was an undrafted free agent quarterback out of UCLA who was signed to play wide receiver. Those are just facts. But when you get rid of good people, which Chad Brinker has spent his time doing, getting rid of good people who have been good for 25 years, you're not sitting there worrying about the things that actually matter for your football team. And that's why they're so bad. That's why they're so bad. I was listening to the radio broadcast today on Titans radio. And I don't want to shit on anybody because, you know, there's like some sort of fraternity when it comes to doing jobs. And it's like, well, if Jared shits on Titans radio, then everybody over at Titans radio will be all mad at Jared. And if Jared calls out 104.5, everybody will be mad. And if Jared calls out 102.5, then Jared will look bitter. And so I understand all of that. But I'm driving over to my parents' house to watch the first half with my dad. And I'm listening to Titans radio. And they're interviewing a Jags beat writer on Zoom. And I thought, nah, okay. I mean, I'd rather hear them do an interview like they used to with Jim White and Buck, but I guess that was too critical of the team, so you can't do that. So Amy Wells interviews a Titans or a Jags beat writer on Zoom. Keep in mind, Amy Wells does the sideline reporting for the home games and not the road games because I guess the 8 travel days a year is just too much for her. So they have a home sideline reporter and a road sideline reporter, which, again, I don't understand what the fuck they need that for, but whatever. So they go to commercial break. They come back, and Will Bowling is interviewing Sebastian Joseph Day via the phone. So it is a taped phone interview with Will Bowling with Sebastian Joseph Day. 10 minutes before kickoff. 10 minutes before kickoff, they are replaying a phone interview with Sebastian Joseph Day. Could you not pretend like, hey, I went to practice on Wednesday, I sat down with him, and so we're pretending like it's in the tunnel before the game, but it's really not? Could you not do that? And then when I was driving back in the third quarter, I'm listening to Taylor Zarzour call the game. And I think, again, if you listen to the game, you can hear, I don't think Coach Mack likes working with this guy. Now, I'm sure Coach Mack won't like it that I said that because now it's like, well, I didn't say that. And Jared Stillman but I'll tell you, you listen, it sounds like Coach Mack is like, I have to work with this slapdick again. And so Titans radio is an absolute train wreck. And I put that again on Burke Nihill and Chad Brinker and those guys that don't know what they're doing. And think about this. They have ruined Titans radio so badly that the radio broadcast product, to me, looks a lot like their football team. And Dave McGinnis, God bless him, is the Jeffrey Simmons of Titans radio. And it's the same guys at the very top calling the shots. And again, you guys do you want to run it back with their people? Because that's what they're going to do. They're going to blame Callahan. They're going to hire a new coach. Matt Nagy will be the next coach of the Titans. And everybody in La La Land will be convinced that Matt Nagy turned Mahomes into Mahomes and that it was just because Justin Fields stinks and Mitch Trubisky stinks, which is valid. It's just because those two guys stink that Matt Nagy didn't win more in Chicago. And so Matt Nagy's going to turn Cam Ward into Mahomes. That's what La La Land's going to believe for an entire offseason. And then the team will win 5 games, maybe next year if they're lucky. So I have no faith in the organization because everything they've done, whether it's their decisions with the PR director, the radio broadcast, the number 1 pick, they're all stupid. Every single one of the decisions they've made. This team is worse than the Ran Carthon ball didn't bounce our way Titans. Think about that. So, that is how I guess I'm starting Normally I get to the reaction by now, 40 minutes in. This is where I am on the Titans. There's no light at the end of the tunnel because the people Amy listens to have proven their incompetence time and time again. And now, because of that incompetence, you're married to Cam Ward. And Cam Ward, every now and then, will have a few plays where he shows here and there that he's got some potential. But he has, throughout the entire course of the season, shown zero consistency. And we're going to have to live with that for 3 years until eventually they blame enough people that now the blame's on Cam. I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel here. And they can convince themselves all they want that, hey, Cam Ward shows up at 5 a.m. Cam Ward wants to be great. Cam Ward will be great. They can do all that. And I don't think Mel Kiper is the end-all be-all. I don't think it's gospel. But I do think it's at least worth noting. Mel Kiper sat there before the draft and said, these guys in this year's class, whether it's Ward or Sanders, I don't have as high a grade on them as I did the quarterbacks last year. And that includes J.J. McCarthy. He said they're nowhere near Caleb Williams and Drake May. Well, now we're going to have to wait 3 years until you get out of that one. There's no light at the end of the tunnel here. So it's frustrating and it's depressing. And I just don't see how it's going to get any better. I mean, it's almost like going back to the toxic ex. Well, maybe the third time this will work. I don't think Burke Nihill's going to wake up tomorrow and figure out how to run a football team. Because he sure as shit hadn't done a very good job the last 5 years. So, let's get to your reaction here on the postgame show. Kelsey says, a terrible game made worse by having to listen to Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta. Nothing but idiotic commentary from the both of them. I think that crew is terrible. I think that crew is a representation of how bad your football game is when you get Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta, which is why the Titans get them very often. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm a Titan fan, and I didn't want to watch that game. I'm a Titan fan. I'm a season ticket holder, and I didn't want to go to that game. You think Adam Archuleta and Spiro Ditas wanted to call that game? They must have gotten the assignment and thought, shit. They're probably thinking, when can we get like Houston and Jacksonville? Nobody's going to watch the game, but at least it might be interesting. I thought Spiro and Adam were fine. I thought the game in front of them was unwatchable, which makes it very hard to call. I think Taylor Zarzour on the radio broadcast calls a much, much, much worse game than those two call. Taylor Zarzour sucks. Like, he might be good at golf, and I know he does a lot of golf for Sirius XM, and so good for him. But as far as football, there's a reason why he was doing the 9th game of the week on the SEC network. He was doing the Western Kentucky at Mississippi State games. There's a reason why. He sucks. He's awful. Like, he is awful. Jim Nantz endorsed him. Okay. Well, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback who ever lived. He endorsed Chip Kelly at $6 million a year. They've already fired him. Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player ever. Did you see the team he ran? But again, Burke Nihill doesn't know what he's doing. Jim Nantz and Eric Church call him on the phone, and he gets a Woody in his pants for Taylor Zarzour, and here you go. So, again, make of it what you will. In fact, somebody says they probably feel the same way about having to work this game. They probably did. One person says, did you see what Baby Leg did for the Jets? Best thing to happen to the Titans today. That was Nick Folk's field goal, mini leg, and he barely got it through, but hey, credit where credit's due. Mini leg. Hold on. Right now I'm watching the Vikings-Seahawks game, and they're doing a QB comparison between the Seahawks quarterbacks the Viking quarterbacks and Sam Darnold, and now they're doing a comparison of Sam Darnold to the Viking quarterbacks this year. Oh my God, it's so funny. Anywho, yes, mini leg made the kick. And I think that's a step in the right direction as far as the Titans draft is concerned. But you can't look at this number 1 pick to be able to bail them out. Because you got the number 1 pick last year and you royally fucked it up. You had the number 7 pick the year before that, and J.C. Latham, I mean, he might need to be playing right guard. He is bad. Like, it's getting there with J.C. Latham. He might need to play right guard. And I said this when they drafted him, my biggest fear about Saban offensive linemen are the way Nick Saban does not coach players to go to the NFL. As much as Nick Saban says that, Nick Saban coaches players to win college football games for Nick Saban. And so what Nick Saban does with his offensive linemen, and this is why so many of Saban's offensive linemen bust, is he just gets them bigger and fatter than everybody else. And you can do that when you've got 5 big fatties on the offensive line and that one good player at LSU that's a legitimate NFL player can be double and triple teamed by those big fatties. And you've got receivers like Julio Jones that get open every time. You don't need much out of these guys. And when you go to the NFL, you're not playing with a team where everybody is good and you've got to, kind of hold your own against guys that are good, and J.C. Latham can't do it. But if you're looking at the number 1 pick in next year's draft to bail you out, let me just remind you, you had the number 1 pick in this year's draft and you screwed it up, and the number 7 pick in last year's draft and screwed it up, and the number 11 pick in the draft the year before and screwed it up with a guard. Link says this franchise has hit rock bottom. I don't think it can get much worse than it is now, but I'm trying to figure out how it's going to get better. That's what I'm really trying to get to when it comes to the Titans is, okay, yes, this team is terrible. Yes, this team has made mistakes. Again, the guard, J.C. Latham, Will Levis. I think Cam Ward is a mistake. Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon. Those mistakes are in the past. So how do they get out of it now? And their answer is Chad Brinker, Burke Nihill, Mike Borgonzi, who thinks Cam Ward is Mahomes. And they're going to hire a coach who's going to totally change everything. And I'm sorry, but I don't feel that way. I feel like you are the Tennessee Titans. Right now, you are the Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray. You're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. You're going to tell yourself that Kyler's never the problem. You're going to give Cam the contract if he shows you anything because you want to believe it. But at the end of the day, Kyler Murray's just not that good. He never was. And it feels like that's how it's going to be with Cam. Joe says, the Titans are worse than their roster. I agree with that. I absolutely agree that the Titans are worse than their roster. One person says, anyone with a brain saw this coming. See, here's what I think's funny. No, they didn't. Now, I had a brain, and I told you don't draft Cam Ward, and I told you when Brian Callahan went to the podium at the beginning of the offseason program and talked about his new Pee Wee program, the 8-team accountability challenge, and about how we've got point systems and we've moved guys around the locker room and this is going to fix us being on sides and this is going to get us to be a more disciplined, organized football team. And I said, that is the dumbest shit I have ever heard. These are grown men. These are 30-year-old millionaires. And you're going to tell me that if I get a question right in the meeting, I get 3 extra points for Gryffindor, and that's going to be the difference between winning and losing in the National Football League. And that was Brian Callahan's biggest offseason accomplishment. And everybody, apparently but me, took it hook, line, and sinker. I remember reading the text line after I was making fun of that. And it was people saying, like, what the fuck is he doing? And then all of a sudden, it's like the media was like, no, I think this might work. Because Callahan invited them in for an off-the-record chat where he went over his Pee Wee program. And they were like, no, I think this might work. And we're talking about people that actually have brains whose opinions I kind of respect, like Gentry. I'm like, Gentry, if this was going to work, Tom Landry would have done this 60 years ago. Again, the old man told me players only respond to 2 things, money and playing time. They ain't responded to fake points. So I knew this wasn't going to work, and I knew they were asking too much of Cam, and I knew they were overselling Cam, and I knew all of that, but I don't think most people did. And even if I didn't want them to pick Cam, and even when I didn't believe in the Pee Wee program, I still didn't think they were going to be worse than last year. I mean, I did think Cam Ward, who I didn't want to draft, and I wasn't sold as the number one pick. I did think Cam Ward was better than Will Levis. Now I have some question marks. One person says Cam might have arm talent, but he can't throw the same ball twice. Ball's going everywhere but the wide receiver's hands. There's some of that. I mean, again, we do this where it's always one guy's fault. You know, it's J-Rob's fault, then it's Vrabel's fault, then it's Rand's fault, then it's Callahan's fault, then next year it'll be Borgonzi's fault, and so on and so forth. And I don't believe in that. I believe that multiple people can be wrong. I mean, I know Vrabel's doing well in New England. They haven't played anybody, but kudos to Vrabel. I still would have fired him. I mean, I still think Vrabel, it was time. And I thought Vrabel screwed a bunch up, even though I would have fired Rand too. There are some passes that need to be caught. I mean, there's a fourth down throw to Tony Pollard where Adam Archuleta on the TV broadcast said that's not a very accurate ball. And they showed the replay, and Tony Pollard had to go across his body to try to catch it. And Tony Pollard still should have caught the ball. That said, I agree with the sentiment. Cam's not accurate. When you say Cam can't throw the same ball twice, I agree. Which will lead you to seeing plays that Cam makes that you look at and say, wow, how did he make that play? He's rolling to his right off of his back foot. He loads up, fires a ball to the opposite hash, 30 yards across the field, and he hits the receiver in the hands. But he also can't make a standard throw from the pocket consistently enough to where you know what you're going to get if you're a pass catcher. And I don't think that's going to change. One guy, Josh Allen, has changed accuracy from not very accurate to very accurate in the last 30 years. I said it when I saw Cam Ward at training camp and he threw 3 interceptions, and I'm like, I see Blake Bortles. Every pass is a day late and a dollar short. The physical talent is there, the arm talent itself, to be able to throw the ball down the field. Blake Bortles had very good arm talent. He was the top quarterback in his class. But with Blake Bortles, he just wasn't very accurate. That's what I see with Cam. I see Blake Bortles at UCF. And again, the people that are supposed to dig the Titans out of the hole that they're in right now didn't see that. They saw Mahomes. One person says, if we had taken the Giants trade with Ward, the Titans could have gotten Jackson Dart and a top 3 pick, as the Giants would have had Ward. I mean, I think if you had taken the trade, you would have signed a quarterback. You might not have taken Jackson Dart. You may have taken Jackson Dart. I don't know. I don't even know. And this would be a fascinating question for Mike Borgonzi. Did you guys do any homework on Jackson Dart? Or was it just Sanders and Ward? Because the Titans came away from the combine and told everybody it was going to be between Ward, Sanders, who ended up in the 5th round, Ward, Sanders, Hunter, or Carter with the first overall pick. Did you do your homework on Dart? I don't know if they did. But I say this because, again, I think the philosophy should have been signing a veteran quarterback that, again, can run an NFL offense and you don't have to babysit, and then trying to build up the team, and then waiting for the opportunity where that good, talented quarterback comes to you, or you can go get the good, young, talented quarterback that you love. And holy shit, the Minnesota quarterback, Bosmer, whoever the fuck that is, who's in there for Sam Darnold, just threw a Will Levis, Brosmer, just threw a pick 6 to Ernest Jones that was a lot like Will Levis's one at Chicago last year, but he did it from like inside his own 5. Way to go, Kevin O'Connell. Way to go, baby. You're so smart. You don't need Sam Darnold. That now you've got J.J. McCarthy, who stinks, Carson Wentz, who stinks, and this guy, it's the exact Will Levis play. He was on his own 5-yard line down 3-0, and he just flipped the ball, and Ernest Jones ran it into the end zone. By the way, Ernest Jones pretty good for whatever it's worth. Way to go, Kevin O'Connell. Smelled his own farts all off season. I'm coach of the year. I can coach anybody up. As Dr. Phil would say, how's that working out for you? Unbelievable. Forrest says this draft class is ass. No one is going to trade up for the number 1 pick this year. I was thinking when I saw this draft class was ass, he was talking about the Titans draft class. I think there will be a trade up. I think that people will like Fernando Mendoza enough to be able to trade up for him. The intel I hear, and I'll just say, I think I have pretty good intel when it comes to this stuff. The intel I have is that Dante Moore is going back to Oregon. So if you take him off, there's 2 quarterbacks. There's Mendoza, who's been consistent this year. And when I watch Mendoza play, I see a little bit more of an athletic Jared Goff, and that's worthy of a top pick. Look, Jared Goff's not my favorite quarterback, but Jared Goff is a top pick caliber talent. He's not Caleb Williams, but he is, in some drafts worthy of another number 1 pick. I see a more athletic Jared Goff and Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, who ever since everyone got on the Ty Simpson train has just looked like absolute dog shit, including last night in the Iron Bowl. Max says, a dude in the crowd today told me if he owned the Titans, that he wouldn't trade Cam for Caleb Williams straight up, and he may have been an Adams. Let me say this, Mac. If you're talking to an Adams, you're not in the crowd. If you had said, hey, I was up in the owner's box and somebody said, that might be one thing. If you said, hey, I saw a Titans employee who had a name tag that said Bryce Wasserman on it, he might be an Adams. He said, that's one thing. So I don't think you were talking to an Adams when you heard that. But let me say this. I think Mike Borgonzi believes that. Like, remember how when they took Cam, there was Louis Riddick on television who was like, I'll tell you, when I watch him, man, I see Patrick Mahomes. And Titans fans ran with that. He's Mahomes, Jared. Now, remember, at the same time, Louis Riddick was saying on TV that the only difference between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders was that Cam Ward had more horsepower than Shedeur. And unfortunately, he might be right, and Shedeur's a 5th-round pick. But nobody actually believed that Cam Ward was Mahomes outside of Louis Riddick. And I think maybe Mike Borgonzi. I truly think that Mike Borgonzi looked at Cam and thought he was Mahomes. And I still don't understand, even if you do think he's Mahomes, why is it you're trying to do everything that Mahomes didn't do? Play as a rookie, be on a bad team, bad coach, no Tyreek Hill, no Travis Kelce, no Eric Fisher at left tackle. Why are you trying to do everything that Mahomes didn't do? No Alex Smith with Cam. But to answer your question, I think that they do feel that way. Apparently the chat is just going off on Taylor Zarzour. Taylor Zarzour stinks. I mean, look, man, I was the one that reported that Taylor Zarzour was getting the job, and Buck the same day had a report that they weren't sure who it was going to be. And I was like, it's going to be Zarzour. And I knew Taylor Zarzour did SEC network games. If it was up to me, I would have hired Jonathan Hutton to do the play-by-play, but Hutton didn't have NFL experience or big-time college experience calling games. So if you wanted to use that as a knock against Hutton, you could. I went into this with a very open mind. Yes, I liked Mike Keith. I still like Mike Keith. And I didn't expect the next guy to be able to replace Mike Keith as just a seamless transition, no matter how nice Mike was about it or the new guy was paying homage to Mike. But this guy sucks. Like, it's hey, this guy, he's not Mike Keith, and anybody who replaces Mike Keith would have a hard time replacing Mike Keith. I was listening to the game, and I heard a Compass Media Networks, which is probably like the 3rd level of syndicated radio broadcast for you radio nerds out there. I heard a Compass Media Network college level broadcast, which is usually like your 6th best game on a Saturday. So Compass Media Networks probably had the call of trying to think who yesterday played, and it was totally meaningless, but it still drew some eyeballs. Colorado TCU. Like, that's the kind of game that Compass Media Networks will have, because ESPN Radio has the best college football games, and then Westwood One has some good college football games, and then there's Compass Media Networks. Taylor Zarzour is leading that level of broadcast. It is not an NFL caliber broadcast. I'm sorry. It is not an NFL caliber broadcast. LP says the Titans are an absolute joke of a franchise right now. It's so bad, really. They need 17 new starters and a completely new coaching staff. And again, that is if you are under the assumption that Chad Brinker is just running the operation and Borgonzi is actually good at what he does, and Brinker is just there in case there are any issues that come up, which again, I'm still not totally sure I buy. Matt says, Amy proved that she is a buffoon for relieving Brinker's horseshit about believing Brinker's horseshit about AI would be the way to make personnel moves. What a bunch of delusional dolts. I mean, at some point, somebody has to ask what Brinker has on Amy. I mean, at some point. David says it'll take 5 years to get over the Carthon hire. Well, considering that they've got Carthon's assistant general manager calling the shots at the very top of it, it may take even longer. I mean, in hindsight, if you're going to roll with Vrabel, then you should have hired a Vrabel lackey and given Vrabel full control. I would not have fired Robinson and said, okay, Mike, I'm going to have a shotgun marriage with a... I probably would have fired both of them if I was going to fire them, but I wasn't going to fire Robinson. But the Carthon hire was an unmitigated disaster. And then what the Carthon hire's done is it's made people around here believe things that aren't true. Like free agency is bad. No, signing the wrong free agents is bad. That's going to do it for us today here on the program. Thank you to Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Thank you to all of you for you made what I was not looking forward to. Like, I'm going to tell you, I was not looking forward to doing this post-game show because the game was so boring and the team sucks and everything else. And I found this to be quite enjoyable. So thank you to all of you out there. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And again, a reminder, like and subscribe. We'll be live tomorrow, 2 o'clock, right here on the 440 Sports Network.